Good morning. This is Sri Primo providing a quick preview of the Australian Open men's singles draw. Usually, the Australian Open for the men's, I usually partner with Dr. Dan Kessler, but Dan is out traveling, so we'll try to do the best I can in terms of the the preview. So let's quickly get down to the draw itself. The draw itself was, and we'll break it down by each of the halves, and we'll talk about the Alcaraz section. You got the when you look at let's quickly talk about the first four seeds. Okay, you got Alcaraz, you got Sinner, you got number two, you got Zverev, and Djokovic is number four. So those are the four sections we have right now. And when I think about the each of the draws, so we'll start with the Alcaraz section. Um, and the Alcaraz section, um, there's a lot of interesting matchups he has ahead of him. You got Tommy Paul, who had played Alcaraz previously last year in the Wimbledon. Took one set off him, but I think Tommy Paul has also been battling injuries. I do think that this may be probably one of the easiest draws that Alcaraz is going to face. So let's talk about the Alcaraz draw right now. He takes on Adam Walton from Australia, and then potential third round could be Sebi Korda from the US. Sebi himself has been actually battling a lot of fitness issues and some of the injury issues. But if he gets past that, there is a potential matchup he could have between Tommy Paul and Fokina and Davidovich Fokina. Now, I had an interesting choice in the third round between Tommy Paul and Fokina. Fokina actually played well. I mean, he had a chance last year to win a trophy. I missed out on that, and Tommy Paul, as I mentioned before, has some injury issues that he himself is battling. I picked Tommy Paul to move on, although I debated long and hard to pick Fokina. So I'm going to go with Tommy Paul getting um, a matchup with Alcaraz in the fourth round. In the bottom half of that same draw, you got a Bublik and Koboli matchup that you're going to potentially see in the third round, and then a Tiafo and Diminor in the third round, right there. So when I think about Koboli is somebody who's actually played really well. I mean, he gave when he played like Novak Djokovic last year, he played him really tough. And Bublik had an amazing run in the U.S. Open last year, but fell to Sinner rather meekly. But again, who doesn't? Everybody, when they play Sinner, Sinner just completely takes over the game and demolishes them in straight sets. So I have a very intriguing matchup between Koboli and Diminor in the fourth round, with the Australian moving on to the quarterfinals to face Carlos Alcaraz. So let's now stop at the Alcaraz half. So you got De Colors, Alcaraz, and Diminor in the Alcaraz bracket. Quickly pivoting to the Zverev bracket, and there are a lot of great players in that draw as well. I would say one of the tougher draws, because there are some players who are actually coming off uh, playing really well. So in the Zverev section, while he starts with a qualifier, um, Zverev could potentially face. He could actually face like Popperin in the second round, and Popperin is somebody, again, is Australian. There was a stretch of time maybe 2 years ago where he was actually regularly in the third rounds, but I don't see that being a problem for Zverev. Now, there is one potential roadblock that Zverev could face in the third round. That could come in the form of lefty Nori from Britain. Nori is supposed to surprise a lot of people. I mean, he did surprise Alcaraz one time. So he's a lefty player. Um, he's very underrated, I would say. His strokes are very underrated, but look out for him. So I think that's like a roadblock that I think Zverev could face. But I don't see Zverev losing that round. I mean, I feel that he's going to go move on to the next round. But then in the third round, in the same bracket, you got Cerundolo. There's two Cerundolos, but this one is the Francisco Cerundolo from Argentina, who's ranked 18. So, but I see a Cerundolo Rublev matchup. And again, Rublev is somebody that Dr. Dan and I always talk about. Uh, he's like your typical, he has like a great run, gets into it, but can never get past the quarterfinals. And I think that trend will continue when he runs into Zverev in the fourth round. And Zverev, I see him moving on to the quarterfinals. Uh, in the other half, the bottom half of the same draw, you got the U.S. Open semifinalist FAA. A great matchup coming up for him, playing against Tien. Leonard Tien was like a rising star for the U.S. And I see that in the third round. And then you got the I would say, the most funniest tennis player, I would call it, mercurial tennis player, you can call it, in Medvedev playing against Rinderknecht in the third round. But I do see Medvedev moving on. He's actually been playing really well. Remember last year, there was many times, I think he actually lost to Tien like three times in a row. But I don't think he will get to face Tien this time. Although, if for some reason Tien beats FAA, I think it could be a matchup that Medvedev would love to play against. I think this could be like a revenge factor for him. But I feel that FAA, who's been playing really well, he's actually ranked number 7 right now. I feel that he's going to move on to face Medvedev. Medvedev actually has dropped in rankings right now. He's actually tottering somewhere in the 11th rank. He's actually out of the top 10 right now. Actually, Bublik is actually ahead of him. So I see the FAA and Medvedev matchup in the fourth round, and Zverev and Rublev in the fourth round in the other bracket. I I think Medvedev has been playing really well. He's actually struggled a lot. As I mentioned before, he's been losing to Tien multiple times. There was like two Grand Slams in a row that he played Tien and lost both of times. But I do think that Medvedev is going to move on to the quarterfinals to play against Zverev. So in the first two brackets that we just analyzed, I see Alcaraz, Diminor, Zverev, and Medvedev. That's pretty much like all chalk there. Um, so I don't see any surprises there. Let's quickly get down to the next bracket, which you have the Novak bracket, and then we'll finish off with the Sinner bracket. In the Novak bracket, you got a lot of very good, solid players, and players who are coming out of injuries, players who have a lot of to prove, players who actually have a lot of expectations written for them. You thought they would make it to the top 10 the last 2 years, even like Andy Roddick had talked about that. I feel that this is be a good opportunity for some of these players to rise up to the top. And I'm referring to the Czech crew between Menchik and Lehechka, who are all both in the same draw. And and Novak, I mean, Novak is also, trying to win. I mean, remember last year Novak won to four straight semifinals, but there were two guys called Alcaraz and Sinner who have been the stumbling blocks for him in for him to reach that number, the magical 25th championship. Is it possible? Remember in 2017, when Federer came back from injury and he was playing Nadal, he was actually down 3-1 in the fifth set. rallied and won it. So will this be Novak's moment, and will this be the moment that he's going to um, pull a Federer and the Australian Open to win his 25th? So let's talk about this. You got the Battle of the Italians. You're going to have the Musetti Sonego, but I don't see Musetti losing it. Musetti right now is in the top five. I think he's actually number five right now. And then you've got a very intriguing matchup in the second round between uh, one of the stars in Wimbledon, Dimitrov, who was actually up 2 sets to love against Sinner in the Wimbledon and lost to him after he had a very brutal injury. He's playing against Tsitsipas, and that's going to be an intriguing matchup. Tsitsipas has not actually been playing well. I'm actually going to give the nod to Dimitrov to move on. He's actually been playing much better coming off that injury, and it's going to be a Musetti Dimitrov matchup in the third round. I just mentioned about the Czech brigade. You got Lehechka, and he's going to take on four-time champion Stan the Man in the second round. Will this be Stan Wawrinka's final foray into the Australian Open? That remains to be seen. But you can't question the way he plays. The question is can't question his heart. He gives everything he's got. Stan the Man playing against Lehechka, will Stan upset Lehechka? I don't think so. I think Lechka will move on. But then you got one of the Americans waiting for him in the third round. He's going to probably face against Taylor Fritz. Fritz, I mean, he was one of the Americans who came very close since Andy Roddick last won a major for the Americans. He faced Sinner 2 years ago at the U.S. Open, but I've not seen Fritz did not have a great year. Although he had a good year in the Laver Cup, but I don't think he beat Carlos Alcaraz in that. But can he continue that? And I do think he can continue beating Lehechka in the third round and moving on to play Musetti. Now, this is I debated long and hard on this matchup, and I saw that can Fritz move on to the quarterfinals to play against Novak? You know what his record against Novak is. I don't think he's beaten Novak at all. So I feel that Musetti is going to move on. I feel that he's going to uh, beat Fritz and get on to the quarterfinals. So I see Musetti waiting in the wings. Who does he get? Well, will it be Novak? Let's see. Let's see Novak's path here. Novak actually has a pretty easy draw from what I heard. He's going to take on Pedro Martinez, not the baseball player, but Pedro Martinez from Spain. I think he should have no problem. His second round matchup could be quite intriguing if his opponent gets through the first round. Um, Terence Atmane. I don't know if you remember, this was the kid from France who had an unbelievable run last year. And he went all the way to the final. I think he played Sinner and he lost to Sinner, but he had like an unbelievable run, taking down a lot of players on the way. Um, can Novak beat Atmana? Yes, of course he can, but you never know that you could get battle tested in the second round itself. Uh, and of course, if he gets past Atmane, he does get Nakashima, who's actually been playing pretty decent. He's still in the top 30. But I don't see any problem for Novak right there. So I feel that Novak will move on. But then, if he can get past them in the third round, there's another battle between the Czech Menchik and Hubi Hurkacz. And again, Hubi has actually fallen out of the rankings. Injuries, a lot of things, his play as well. He's actually bounced out of the top 30. So now Menchik, who's actually in the top 20 right now, playing against Hurkacz. I feel this Czech brigade is going to roll, and Menchik is going to move on to face Novak Djokovic. If you remember that he did play Menchik, young player, he did play Novak in Miami last year, played amazing, won the tournament. But can he reprise that performance again? I feel that Novak is going to move on and take on the Italian Musetti. So we got now six seeds punched or 6 slots punched. Let's quickly go down to the Sinner bracket. Yes, of course, I'm going to pick Sinner to go all the way, but let's talk about his path. Does he have any hiccups along the way? Uh, I don't see any big issues for Sinner until the third round. Now, the third round is you're going to have he's going to play the young Brazilian Fonseca in the third round. Now, can he actually be the uh, person taking down Sinner? That remains to be seen. I think he may probably maybe take a set of Sinner, but I don't see Sinner losing to Fonseca. Fonseca is still young; he's still learning. I do think that I think last year I thought he could actually make a big run into one of the majors, but I didn't see that. I feel that this year he may get to one of the major quarterfinals, maybe, but I think 2027 could be his year. So I don't see him beating Sinner. But one thing could be that I could see Sinner running into is one of our other uh, underrated players from Russia, who is still in the top 15, Karen Kachanov. Um, uh, I feel that he will pose some problems for Sinner, but I don't see that happening. But Sinner's actually probably got a tougher bracket than Alcaraz or Novak or even Zverev. I feel that his bracket is one of the toughest. He's a defending champion. I feel that you should have probably given him something. But again, Sinner was not going to complain. But I'm just saying that he's got a tougher road, like Novak too. Novak also has a tougher road. Uh, but Sinner playing against Kachanov in the fourth round, that'll be quite interesting. Now, who does he have when he goes to the quarterfinals? There's a good matchup, and I know we have Ben Shelton going to be playing, but Ben Shelton is actually going to have a, a matchup that I think he has to be very careful about. He's going to be playing against Vacherat. Vacherat, as you all remember, Valentin, who's actually the cousin of Rinderknecht. He was a surprise. He had like an amazing run in China last year, went and won it all the way. Well, and I did really talk about it during last year. That was an unbelievable performance he had and went on to win the final. He's going to be facing Ben Shelton. Now, Ben Shelton actually has a interesting second round himself when he has to play against Gael Monfils, the ever um, I would say, fun-loving Guillermo Fees, and who can really turn a game on the dime. I feel that Ben is not going to have a problem, but I think that'll test him during that second round. So I see Ben Shelton, Vancherat, not an easy two matches for him, but I do feel that Shelton is going to move on to the fourth round easily. But then he's got I mean, this is going to be interesting if things break his way. His path to the quarterfinals after the first two tough matches could easily get through. He's going to play against Ruud, who's Casper Ruud. Actually, there was an exhibition match that he played against Roger, a tiebreaker, and Roger beat him 7-2. And again, I don't count that. But having said that, Rude actually has some tough matches himself. He has to play against Shapovalov and to get to the fourth round. But I feel that Ben Shelton will play against Casper Ruud, and I feel that Ben will get into the quarterfinals along with Sinner. So right now we got all eight uh, seeds, all eight playoff, or sorry, all eight quarterfinals punched. You got Carlos playing against Diminor, Zverev playing against Medvedev, Musetti playing against Novak, and Ben Shelton against Sinner. So let's quickly get down to, I'll start from the bottom up this time. Sinner, Ben Shelton. Sinner and Musetti, sorry about that. No, Sinner and Ben Shelton. Um, I feel Sinner's will be tough for Ben Shelton to handle. Ben will probably take a set of him, but I don't see Sinner losing it. I mean, he's been coming strong. As you know, he finished last year at number two. He won the Turin Open, or the year-end ATP tournament. even though he lost now the U.S. Open to Carlos Alcaraz. I don't see him kind of taking a day off, and I feel that Sinner is going to move on to the semifinals. Now, and this was another tough matchup I had between Musetti and Novak. Um, Novak, again, I mean, I shouldn't be doubting him anymore because he's been to the semifinals last year, but he's a little year older. The temperature is going to be quite hot. It's not like other places. I feel that even though he may be in a good shape in his life, I feel that Novak will probably lose to Musetti in a very tough five setter. Now, one thing that is going to be very interesting is that can Novak, in the heat and the humidity in Melbourne, can he last through a lot of these tough? I mean, he has to play some very tough players. But Nakashima is not going to be easy. Menchik is not going to be easy as well. And Novak's best bet is to see if Fritz can beat Musetti somehow and then face Fritz because I think something about Novak and Fritz. I think Fritz has a tough time beating Novak. Maybe it's the matchup, it's the way Novak plays him. So that's his only, I think I would say his only hope. And again, you can all like yell at me if Novak goes to the semifinal, but that's where I'm standing by. I think it's going to be a Musetti and Sinner all Italian semifinal. Quickly going down to the other bracket, you got Alcaraz playing on Diminor. Something tells me, like, even though Diminor had a very good run in the Laver Cup, I feel that Carlos is playing really well. He has actually changed his serve a little bit. The one thing that bothers me about Alcaraz is that I don't think he's got a much easier bracket, as I mentioned before. But if Carlos can't, one of the things I see as a potential, not a hiccup, because Juan Carlos Ferrero, that Carlos recently split with, is no longer in his box. So I don't know how much, he's won all these championships with Juan Carlos on his side. Um, the only thing I would worry about with Alcaraz is that when he gets to the later stages in a tournament like a quarterfinals, he does not have anybody in his ear talking about um, some of the things that he needs to adjust to beat a player like Diminor. Can Diminor upset Carlos? Yes, on a given day, yes. Will Carlos miss Juan Carlos Ferrero? That remains to be seen. I'm still calling Carlos to move on to the semifinal, but I think that's something to watch. I would in this year. I know last year was 2-2 between Alcaraz and Sinner, but let's see if this is going to be an impact. And this is be the first true test. In the other half, you got the Zverev and Medvedev. This actually, I'm going away from that because I think Medvedev is in number 11. So for me, there was not all chalk for me. So I'm actually picked Medvedev to beat FAA. So I see Medvedev and Zverev battling it. But as good as Medvedev has played, I feel that Zverev is going to move on to the semifinals. So that's what we have. We have the All Italian semifinal in Musetti and Sinner, and then you got Carlos facing Zverev. That's pretty much 1-4. That's now all chalk right now, and I feel it's going to be an Alcaraz and Sinner final. Now, who wins it? I want to predict it right now, and I will go with my prediction. But I know when Dr. Dan comes back, we're going to go do a deep dive right after the quarterfinal section. But for now, if you ask me who's going to win it all, I feel that with all the things going on with Carlos, especially with his coaching, with his new serve, and the fact that Sinner is eager to capture that number one seed, I feel that Sinner is going to actually win his Australian Open again, yet again, denying Carlos the career Grand Slam that he desperately wants. Carlos has already won all the other tournaments. And I think for Sinner, it's the other way around, right? Sinner has won the US Open, Sinner has won the Australian Open, Sinner has now won Wimbledon. For Sinner, the biggest thing for him is to complete the career Grand Slam is going to be the French Open. So this is a battle of who is going to get first to the career Grand Slam. And I feel that Sinner is going to deny Alcaraz the career Grand Slam and will be the back-to-back champion again in the Australia in Melbourne on Jan 31st. So with that, we wrap it up. Thanks again for listening. When we'll be joined by Dr. Dan once we get on to the later rounds, and I'll be doing a daily recap of the Australian Open. Thanks again for listening. Have a good day.